Hello, good evening and welcome along to Business Today. I'm Jerome Paul Sunko with Winnie Williams and Nakauchi on the sign language, here to give you more of your daily report. We now start with a report from the Uganda National Roads Authority, which has apparently revealed that UNRA operates on losses. The members of Parliament from the Committee of Finance want the Ministry of Finance to explain how the Uganda National Roads Authority got to the point of paying 342 million shillings daily as interest on arrears, which has led to the underperformance of this sector in the year 2021 to 2022. Samla Hanifa with the details.
But we should focus our mind on how we can support them by pressing hard on Ministry of Finance to prioritize UNRA.
The Ugandan government allocated 2,159.8 billion shillings to the Uganda National Roads Authority, UNRA, of which 77% was released and spent. According to UNRA head Alan Kajina, the sector underperformed this fiscal year and she blames the COVID-19 pandemic, which caused all business sectors to underperform.
This is across the country. It's not just inadequate releases to Uganda National Roads Authority. The major causes have been, of course, the last 2 years' expenditures on managing the COVID situation.
Kajina tells the committee that commitment by government to construct roads for each constituency, yet the sector has not enough funds to carry out the task, remains a problem.
Overcommitment. Primarily, we are taking on more than we can chew. As a government, not as you know, I told you we are just an implementing agency. Everybody wants a new road. Every member of parliament wants a new road because of the situation in their constituencies. These demands are legitimate, they are genuine. Nobody wants a road for luxury. Everybody wants a road to serve their people. But can you afford it? So we are overcommitted as a country. 2014, I made a statement which put me in trouble with Parliament. Because when I joined UNRA, I found that UNRA was completely overcommitted in 2015.
On the other hand, the lawmakers have expressed their displeasure with UNRA and the way it conducts its business and have demanded that the Ministry of Finance appear before the committee to explain the 342 million shillings in interest payments UNRA makes each day.
The communication between you and Finance demanding for these payments. Because clearly we want to know who is not doing his job. Paying interest of 342 million a day, that alone is 10 billion a month. And somebody is very comfortable. Because when you look at the Public Finance Management Act, section 23 and 36, they place the responsibility of raising loans and multi-year commitments to the Minister of Finance. So we want to know from him when he comes anyway. If you give us that information, we want to know from him what he has been doing about this and when did it start to get to the level that we are paying 342 million per day.
We were sure that releases were going to be made, and we know you're getting warranties. And later on, we found out there were no cash. Warranties cannot be cashed, which makes it worse. But what is worse still is that most of the loans that we get need counterpart funding, especially from government of Uganda. And we've seen the effects. The poor performance that was reflected in your submission of the 68% was because there was no equivalent counterpart funding that would have enabled the effectiveness of the projects that you have already planned. You see, what is unfortunate is that we must be sincere to ourselves as government to appreciate that this is what is available and come out with open hands and plan and use that effectively. For you to engage into projects, to engage into agreements with owners of land, and then you commit, and later on you start to incur interest to this tune, is a disservice to this government. We have to go into a genuine discussion with the Ministry of Finance and then agree. You either stop and we first handle the backlog and make sure it is effectively done, but also remember that the programs we have, for example, I was here trying to reflect on how proud we've talked about the parish development model, and we've engaged our people into production. Which roads are they going to use to bring these foods to the markets?
The MPs have also tasked UNRA to explain why the roads to their specific constituencies are impassable, especially during the rainy season, yet the sector has used almost 99% of the budget that was allocated to them.
How do you consider something an emergency? Because we had an emergency in Mbale, as you're all aware, and we had many of our roads destroyed, and I wrote to the office of the Prime Minister, I wrote to the Minister, and the Minister came on the floor of Parliament and promised to send a UNRA team right away to Mbale to assess and come and see what they can do to help with the situation. Fortunately, the team came, but I only saw them moving around Mbale and sleeping in expensive hotels, but no work was done up to now.
I'm putting Chairperson Greater Ankole region because UNRA visited other regions and chose not to visit my region. And so some members are inside here within this committee and will support me that UNRA chose not to visit our region last year.
Kajina's father stressed out that if Parliament wants UNRA to perform to their expectation, they should prioritize the resources where it matters and also reduce on requesting for more roads to be constructed until UNRA gets done with the ones that it has.
I don't want to sit here and accuse Parliament, because Parliament passes the budget. If I have asked for so much and I'm given so much, I can only work within the limits of what you have given me. But as we have sat here in this session, this meeting, even in this very meeting, Chair, in these submissions, more roads are being added to what is not even funded. So the burden is getting heavier and heavier per meeting. I just wanted to make that statement so that we are together in solving a problem and not saying, UNRA, solve this problem. Or UNRA, you are responsible for things not happening. If I can use an analogy, in your homes, if you do not buy food, how can you blame the cook?
Who is to blame for the 342 million shillings UNRA continues to pay as interest every day? Legislators blame finance for poor planning. UNRA defends finance, yet the sector continues to perform poorly in this financial year. Samla Hanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And now let's look at Uganda and the Middle East relations. Now, yesterday afternoon, President Yoweri Museveni received and held talks with a group of Federation of Arab businessmen and investors, which was led by their leader, Mr. Baker Debaiba. And on the other hand, during the meeting that took place at State House, Entebbe, President Museveni welcomed the Middle East investors to the country, assuring them of fertile soils, as well as a good climate, especially for the agricultural sector. Now, the group leader, Mr. Baker Debaiba, thanked the President for sparing time and the warm welcome. He did say the group is interested in investing in the agricultural sector, as well as manufacturing. The meeting was attended by the State Minister for Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, Honorable David Bahati, among other senior government officials, as we look forward to value addition into the agricultural sector. That is a big one to steadily look at as investors keep coming in the country. The latest coming in from the these particular one coming in from the Middle East countries. All right, now away from that, let's look at the Uganda Innovation Week 2022. Today is the first day of the Uganda Innovation Week in Kampala, and the purpose of the event, according to Richard Zulu, who is the chairperson of Startup Uganda, is to improve Uganda's startup ecosystem by luring investors and business funders as well as startups, claiming the process of formalizing their companies, which is stressful. Pedison Mumbere has details.
Starting up a business is one of the most challenging tasks to execute. It is not just about conceiving the idea alone, but it involves steady planning and a level of expertise in the business. Beyond financial constraints, there is a skill gap in the entrepreneurship, which skills are critical for growth and scaling up an innovative business. Richard Zulu is the chairperson of the Startup Uganda, says that the Innovation Week is therefore here to improve the Uganda startup ecosystem by luring investors and business funders.
The purpose of starting an initiative like this was because we noticed that many individuals and organizations that are supporting businesses are working in silos. They are not working together. Secondly, we noticed that not very many people know what's happening in this country with regards to how innovators and entrepreneurs are supported. And so Uganda Innovation Week is a platform and an opportunity that brings together all these actors, be they government, business, entrepreneurs, academia, to really get to share knowledge and also share what they're doing in terms of the work they're undertaking.
There is also a struggle of getting paying customers, which means innovators will also struggle to get investors. And this comes back to the commitment. So how should innovators be helped to get paying customers and investors so that they commit?
To how do we deal with the different challenges based on the existing indigenous solutions? Then how do we take those a level higher and begin to write codes, right? And then that is when innovation really kicks in, because then we can begin to automate our own solutions. The same is true in the financial sector, the same is true in healthcare, the same is true in food production, in environmental protection, in transportation, in every space.
There are those who are in danger of being left behind because they don't have access to financing to run their small businesses. And a lot of that financing now is over digital platforms. But as we address those barriers, some of those barriers are around use cases. So having digital platforms just to withdraw and receive money is not enough for a rural farmer who's trying to access inputs, fertilizer, markets.
The Uganda Registration Service Bureau has been underscoring the unfortunate reluctance by most of the Ugandan SMEs to formalize their businesses. Stella Nakauchi from the Social Innovation Academy and a young startup who was at the event says that the whole process is stressing.
Just yesterday, I was talking to some of our scholars at the Social Innovation Academy, and they were saying that when they go to URBS, the process takes them longer, you know? So there are all these requirements necessary. You have to reserve the name, and then after reserving the name, then you have to wait. And we also realized that those who pay lawyers to do the registration for them takes short time, and that also needs money.
According to the 2022 Innovation Week theme, Uganda's entrepreneur ecosystem unlocking the missing links, there are still a number of gaps to close in order to improve the growth of viable market-ready businesses and the capacity to be relevant. Pedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today. Starting up a business is one of the most challenging tasks to execute. It is not just about conceiving the idea alone, but it involves steady planning and a level of expertise in the business.
All right, now let's look at the IMF economic outlook. Although Uganda will experience an acceleration in growth from its current rate of 4.7% to 5.9%, in 2023, the International Monetary Fund cautions that there are difficult times ahead. Our policymakers are urged to gradually raise their interest rates while remaining vigilant. They must take care to prevent inflation expectations from becoming unanchored and rising significantly. The management of public finances and debt, which is becoming increasingly difficult for many African countries, is advised to do those involved. Rona Nahawe reports.
In their defense, the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Finance says they intend to rationalize tax exemptions to ensure that such distinguished taxes pay off with big returns.
That's actually what has been informing the entire policy on these tax expenditures, exemptions, that because investors ask for them, a number of them, ask for them when they come into the country to compensate for especially the other areas which are not working so well. And we are saying we are not waking up to say no exemptions. No. But we are saying let us rationalize them. If the word rationalization is a bit difficult, is let us open up these exemptions, study them. And I've said the 4 major things we are focusing on is number 1, if you qualify for exemption, what criteria are we using?
The rising inflation has continued to become a song, but the PSST says that it will soon go down.
About rain and good government, the rest is a detail. Inflation in Uganda is actually heading towards a peak very soon, and you will see it going down after that. There are numbers which our econometricians have worked out, but I usually leave a benefit of doubt on them.
Recently, MPs consented to a 2 trillion shillings new loan, but the CSOs say that the target is 12 trillion, but is the reason justifiable?
So for me, I'm not surprised the government is borrowing. In fact, I am worried. I don't know why the Minister of Finance is delaying to, because we have to borrow approximately 12 trillion Ugandan shillings to cover our budget. So borrowing in bits and bits, maybe they have their own reasons, but some of us were projecting that we need to borrow 12 trillion.
The permanent secretary continues to mention that there are certain funds and grants that have become a menace for the country. He claims they have so many conditions attached to them and it's almost impossible to pay them off as they are so expensive.
In our negotiations, because what we call negotiations so often delay the processes. Sometimes the money could be free but more expensive than the one you are borrowing because of the kind of conditionalities which are there. So we need to look at them. Sometimes that's why you see rational human beings. I know human beings are usually irrational, but sometimes they can be rational. Rational human beings taking time to approve free money. And they approve very quickly what somebody thinks is expensive money. It's actually the other way around. They have studied and found that the money which has a pecuniary cost is cheaper than the other one without such a cost. So we need also to review those conditionally.
For the year in review, economic outlook for 2023 and how the economy intends to keep resilient and be able to keep businesses alive, International Monetary Fund was responsive.
The year has been satisfactory. We have seen right policies being implemented, both in terms of monetary and fiscal policies. Uganda has resisted providing wasteful, expensive fuel subsidies. Many countries fell into that trap. Uganda has managed to consolidate fiscal balances gradually. Inflation has been low for most of the year, and the central bank is taking the right steps to control the increase in prices more recently and going forward. And overall, it has been, despite all the difficulties, it has been a year in which Uganda had implemented many important reforms, especially in the fiscal area.
The survey by the Sub-Saharan Economic Outlook by the International Monetary Fund concludes with an upbeat declaration that Africa's ultimate potential remains undimmed and is poised with help to finally fulfill the promise of the African country to remain resilient. Ronana Habwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now let's head to Naivasha as we look at the Naivasha inland port. Uganda's cargo transportation industry has developed steadily to reach its current level. Its dedication to look for chances that will allow the country to grow and take on cargo movement throughout the entire continent of Africa and the rest of the world has never deterred. Kenya Revenue Authority has started clearing transit goods from the port of Mombasa to the Naivasha Inland Container Depot in Naivasha. Bronia Katusime with the details.
It is believed that the new inland port will increase storage, particularly of goods going to the East African Community Partner States of Uganda, South Sudan, Northern Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Kenya has pushed to move operations from Mombasa and Nairobi to the Naivasha Inland Container Depot. But Uganda is not yet prepared to use it as its primary transit freight handling facility.
That the Naivasha ICD is more near to the border point in Maraba than going all the way to Nairobi, or maybe picking your cargo all the way to Mombasa. So it is our appeal, and we encourage the business partners from Uganda to utilize the Naivasha ICD, which I feel it is economically viable for the
Uganda, meanwhile, is not prepared for Naivasha and would rather keep loading their cargo from Mombasa. Truck drivers would still need to pick up containers from Naivasha and transport them to their destination. Therefore, using the Naivasha ICD for transit freight would not result in a traffic reduction. Kenya's Inland Container Depot manager goes into further detail about its effectiveness.
The government has done, it has also invested in modern container handling, such that the span between the meter gauge and SGR is now on a rail time. You just lift from the meter gauge or SGR onto the meter gauge on a rail time basis. So we don't take the containers, so that ensures that there is no delay from the port of Mombasa on transit to Uganda, and of course to other transit countries like Rwanda, Burundi, and DRC. So that is what the government has done for the Naivasha facility. Basically, it is for Ugandans. I would say it's for Ugandan by extension. Of course, other transit countries. But in terms of volume, to me, the major importers, the major users of the ICD in Naivasha are Ugandans.
The use of Naivasha ICD, which is a crucial component of our long-term regional infrastructure development, should, in the opinion of many, remain optional. Currently, moving a 20-foot container from Mombasa to Kampala costs on average $2,100, whereas SGR saves clients 18 hours by going from Mombasa to Naivasha in just 10 hours.
All transit cargo should go through Naivasha. So that means we're supposed to be occupying the standard gauge rail. However, by the time that was done, that was in the end of 2019. I think end of 2019, if I remember very well. The challenge had been that Naivasha did not have infrastructure. You would have to now hire a truck from Nairobi to go to Naivasha. There were no gantries to carry the trucks, to carry the containers off the truck to the railway, or off the railway to the truck. And it was not connected to the meter gauge railway that comes to Uganda. So basically the cost still remained high. Now, one of the biggest challenges is when the containers come back, we do not have container hubs here, whereby most of the shipping lines store their containers as empty containers pending export.
The Naivasha Inland Port was due to hasten the movement of cargo between ships and significant land transportation networks, establishing a more central distribution point. Additionally, the port facilitates import and export traffic by relocating the labor-intensive sorting and processing of containers from the crowded seaports to the interior. In particular, goods going to Uganda, South Sudan, Northern Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and the Democratic Republic of Congo will be stored at the Naivasha facility. By doing this, the Mombasa port will experience less congestion, have more room to handle more goods, and operate more efficiently, all of which will encourage greater trade, including transshipment business. Bronya Katsime, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
That's it from cargo movement from the port of Mombasa to inland Kampala. With that, we do take a short break. We return with more business today. Stick around to Smart 24 TV. Smart 24, driving business.
Sky. Futinbuto, the taste of Uganda in a new international park.
This is Doha, this is Qatar. We come together tonight, 1 billion of us, in every corner of the globe where the beautiful game matters.
Here for the show-stopping magic of a moment.
Get a DSTV decoder at only 79,000 shillings with 1 month free on access and upgrade to DSTV Compact for 56,000 shillings to enjoy all 64 matches.
Smart 24, driving business. We'll be back from the break. Let's continue with more business today. Now, we look at inclusive economics as the Pan-African Feminist Leadership Development Organizations, together with women entrepreneurs, have come out to echo the need to review tax policies and adjustments in order to create a just tax gender-based system. This correlates with uncertainties encountered by women-led businesses during the pandemic, which were accompanied with the inability to recover or obtain loans for expansion. Desire number with more.
The tax system is crucial for achieving women's rights because it provides an overview showing how taxes and tax policies negatively affect women who already experience several intersecting inequities. This also explains how illicit financial flows undercut government income and policies, as well as the necessity for a feminist care-focused post-pandemic recovery that addresses concerns such as care and tax justice, as well as regressive tax systems.
The issue that we are discussing this morning is the issue of tax justice, and especially how it impacts women and other marginalized groups, and to see how women and other marginalized groups can be helped to address the issues that are impacting their businesses. We know that 80% of women's businesses are in the informal sector, which means that while they pay taxes, they are still not getting the same benefits that they should be receiving, i.e. health, education. We've just learned today that a number of businesses had to close, and therefore their children were not able to go back to school. So that spirals into the economic crisis that we face as a country.
Tax exploitation of women in the informal sector has occurred, and the climate crisis has led to closure of several female-owned businesses. The implementation of tax laws relating to electronics created a challenging corporate environment where unfair charges were depicted as destroying profitability.
But with the introduction of a free system by URA, you find that us who supply supermarkets were actually forced to register for VAT, and it has caused increase in prices of our products. And we're talking about, when I talk about SMEs, we are talking about 75% of businesses in Uganda, and you can imagine how many people they are employing. And then when with the introduction of AFRIS as well, it means that you're also introducing a new component as far as your expenditure is concerned. Some SMEs do not have computers. I might be having a computer, I might be having Wi-Fi in my office, but I'm talking on the issue of collateral. For you to be able to access finances, you need collateral. But we know it's only about 30% of women in Uganda that own land. We've just had a testimony from a business leader here who would like to set up a factory in her. She would like to set up a factory, but the land belongs to her husband, and it's not in her names. So much as the government has made available collateral for women, she cannot made available finances for women. She cannot access those finances because she does not have collateral.
The history of feminist economists, women's rights and feminist organization, civil society organization, and research institutions engaged in the study in the advocacy for tax fairness is long and rich in Uganda. With their decades-long organizing for gender-responsive budgeting, the groups have focused on both revenue generation and equality-enabling expenditure side. It explains how to connect a global advocacy issue to a national framework in a way that it is effective for influencing both national and international contexts by presenting a feminist, intersectional, and human rights-based approach to fiscal policy. Desire Nambiru, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now let's look at extractive industry opportunities. The national enrichment through natural resource exploitation of minerals shall only be achieved if a well-thought inclusive strategy for host communities is adopted as the pursuit to achieve the National Development Plan 3 goals continues. Let's get more in this report.
With a seepage of minerals spread across different areas in Uganda, such as Karamoja, Kasese, Makutu, Kasanda, among others, the crucial opportunity for exploitation lives as the country banks on the extractives industry as a key area for foreign exchange and attaining growth, but much to the concern of host communities.
If we are going to manage ourselves, is to use our resources better, our human, our youth, and our natural resources. So answering your question is not only goal that we need to plan better to factor in to be a sector that can create jobs, entire sector of mineral resources, and not only gold, sand, clay, aggregate stones as you go up. Because you need sand to get glass. You need aggregate stones, you need marble, you need diamond for industrial purposes, not for selling to put rings on your hand.
The extractives industry that has grown to include the much sought after rare earth elements and green minerals for the fourth industrial revolution and clean energy transition is however plagued by a backlash from rudimentary host communities that feel left out.
The minerals that are critical for their use in providing energy, substituting for fossil fuel and coal, which are known to escalate climate change, these are being sold worldwide. People will flock in the country because they know what Uganda has. So we have to be strategic and ready.
What happens, the investors and some investments do contrary. After investing into the community, they hardly come in to cater for the feedback. And such incidences have occurred on a wider scale in very many areas of the country. However, beside that, when such investment have happened into a place, the local communities benefit in terms of casual employments, in terms of roads, in terms of electrification, water, and some other agencies that come as an added advantage.
To attain the National Development Plan 3 goals on jobs and wealth, issues such as mineral refinery will require heavy investment for a return on investment.
Many laboratories for value addition. You can have a mobile gold refinery with the ministry. It will drive you to Kasanda, it will park there. Every dollar of gold is brought in, they buy it, put it there. Mobile. They bring it here at Central Bank, they take to the refinery, it's refined, stamped Uganda product, brought to the Central Bank, sold as a Ugandan product. No?
A comparative advantage approach for the benefit of the rudimentary host communities could be definitive in uplifting the low-income sector players, such as artisanal miners.
Government needs to come on board, have a comparative study, and look at every investment in perspectives of earning and benefiting the community and the entire country.
So it's very, very, very important that regions benefit. Because when you look at Kasa and Mubende, you know, one of the companies there of artisan is about 400,000 miners. But these are not just miners, they are African, they are not artisan. I don't use the word artisan in my vocabulary for ASM. I use African small miners.
With a growing marginalized rudimentary local sector players and host communities, a lot beyond protective legislation for equal opportunities in the extractive industry shall be key for gross benefit. Ivan Tivenkana, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And now let's look at the export sector setbacks and resolutions. Uganda's trade balance is negative because it imports more than it exports. Economies are struggling economically as a result of the slowing of global economic growth. And understanding the foundations of production quality will help us improve home manufacturing practices and grow the export sector. We have more in this report.
About 80% of Uganda's overall exports are made up primarily of agricultural goods. These include, among others, fish, maize, tobacco, tea, hides and skins, coffee, which dominates the export market, and cocoa beans. The export sector is hampered by operations bottlenecks, which are work stages that cannot satisfy the production quota even at their maximum throughput capacity due to the delays or stops in the flow of operations.
Some of the bottlenecks that have been faced by this industry are two-way. For both agricultural and processed is the quality. Many Ugandans either do not know or choose to ignore the standards that have been issued to enable you have the right quality for the goods that are required out there. So there is information that's readily available, but some people either choose not to adhere and others do not know, or others do not follow the process of production. Yes, so majorly quality, 2, the quantity, 3, the consistency.
To produce the highest quality exports and draw on the global market, it is essential to be able to gauge the quality of your products during the manufacturing process. Uganda must significantly raise its standards in order to compete on the national and regional markets.
So today, Uganda loses revenue from exports of about $100 million per year because of interceptions. What are interceptions? This is where Ugandans do export, but in the destination market, they find our exports are not compliant with the standards of the destination market. So they ban actually these exports, they destroy them. So we are working with the private sector and government, particularly the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Trade.
If a corporation discovers that its production capacity is insufficient to satisfy its production goals and the standards of the global market, a bottleneck affects the level of production capacity that it can accomplish.
From production to transportation costs, then the procedures involved up to the time of shipping. There were problems of standards of the exports that you want to export, and even the sensitization of the farmers who produce the things you want to export, all that needs to be done in order to be able to have exports and which are competitive on the world market.
The export of manufactured goods with added value, such as base metal products, cement, edible fats and oils, sugar, plastics, soap, personal care items and cosmetics, is also progressing for the nation. She further talks about how to address some problems hunting the business.
We work with other organizations. We work with MAIF, Ministry of Agriculture. We work with UNBS for items that are actually processed or manufactured to regulate the standards of the produce. Then with agriculture, we work with Ministry of Agriculture to ensure that your soil, things that are in your soil are actually good for you to grow for export. Do you have a pack house? They inspect to check. So agriculture is there to train the farmers to actually produce specifically for export.
The government and the private sector should liaise about the best measures to take to grow the country's export base, such as improving infrastructure and supporting farmers and exporters as well to produce good quality of goods and commodities to meet the better standards of the international market for development in our country. Bronya Katsime, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now let's look at equality, gender equality at workplaces and the equality in economic growth. Gender equality would result in an additional 10.5 million employment by 2050, benefiting both men and women. Approximately 70% of these jobs would be filled up by women, but with time, gender preferences in the employment sector will converge, reaching an 80% rate by 2050. The government is collaborating with the businesswomen to establish workplace gender equality policies. This and more with Martha Nimsima.
Article 21 of the Ugandan Constitution prohibits discrimination against anybody, including employees, based on their sex, race, color, ethnic origin, tribe, faith, religion, social standing, political stance, or disability. Everyone is equal before the law. Furthermore, discrimination based on sex, race, color, social origin, or HIV status is prohibited by the Employment Act. It is considered discrimination if an employee seeks to exclude a worker or favors another worker based on these criteria. To implement policies of gender equality at workplaces, the government is collaborating with various NGOs due to the fact that women hold the majority of economic positions in the nation and they are actively involved in all economic activities in Uganda. The government has collaborated with various NGOs to implement these policies.
I also want to encourage women not to coil or not keep quiet about issues that affect them, because the more you keep quiet about these issues, the more you find yourself a victim of issues like sexual harassment. So I want to say that government has done a great job in making sure that our laws protect women at workplaces, and even the workplaces themselves. You yourselves have gone to some of these workplaces and you have discovered that there are policies put even out there on their boards of entrance or in their manuals, their work manuals, employment manuals. So yes, a lot is being doing. Other groups, other institutions, NGOs, the Law Society itself has equally come out strongly on this. So yes, there's a lot being done in protection of the woman at the workplace. So I want to say that women play a great role in economic development, and personally, I think that the women in Uganda are trying their very best to do that, because you find like 40% are in businesses, they are in markets, they are in agricultural sectors, they've taken up political spaces, they have become leaders at various levels, and all of this kind of promotes or contributes to the economic development of this country.
Because they already have all the power necessary and because these policies have already been established, it is now time for women to put these rules into practice and dig into the fight for equal rights at the workplace. This will help increase employment and provide women more chances to take senior positions at the workplace.
Can as well support each other. The only challenge is for women to support fellow women. And surprisingly, we have men who support us. But women supporting fellow women is the only way, because divided, we lose, but united we win. So we need to position ourselves and be put in positions where we are in position to make decisions that benefit us, that are going to help us, so that we have a voice, a strong voice that can be heard as women. For me, that is what I think. I am not at that level of lamenting. We talked about affirmative action. All these policies have been brought up. Now the time is us. It is now. We must act.
Women have the right to work in the same establishments and fields as males. As stated in Ugandan Constitution Article 40, women can work in any capacity without being restricted by the law. According to the law, everyone in Uganda has the authority to exercise his or her professional judgment to engage in any authorized occupation, trade, or business. Martha Nimsima, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And that's all from tonight's bulletin. Many thanks for being part of Business Today from wherever you've been catching us from. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko with Winnie Williams and Akauchi on the sign language. We've been coming to you live from plot 42 Nile Avenue. Have a blessed day. Good evening.
Smart 24